Welcome back to the channel. Tonight's theme is one that always makes my skin crawl. Night shifts. When the world is asleep and you're left alone in silence, strange things start to happen. You hear noises you can't explain. You see movement in empty hallways. And sometimes, you realize you're not as alone as you thought. These are 3 true night shift horror stories. Turn off the lights, and let's begin. Story 1. The janitor who never left. I used to work night shifts as a security guard at a small community hospital in upstate New York. It wasn't a big place. 2 floors, around 50 rooms in a single hallway connecting the ER to the maintenance wing. The job was simple. I'd clock in at 10 p.m., walk the halls every hour, check doors, make sure no one had slipped in. Nights were usually dead quiet, the kind of silence where you can hear the hum of the vending machine across the hall. I started that job in the winter of 2018. My 3rd week in, I learned about a janitor named Henry. Everyone knew him, apparently. He'd worked there for almost 20 years before he died of a heart attack during a night shift. They said he collapsed in the basement near the old boiler room, the same area I was supposed to patrol every 2 hours. At first, I didn't think much of it. Hospitals always have stories, right? But things started to feel off. The first strange thing happened around 2 a.m. one night. I was doing my usual walk through the basement corridor. It's dim down there, old flickering lights, pipes hissing with steam. As I turned the corner, I heard the faint sound of a mop sliding across the floor. A slow, wet, dragging sound. Back and forth, I froze. There wasn't supposed to be anyone down here. I waited, the sound stopped. Then a few seconds later, it started again. This time I could also hear the squeak of rubber boots. I called out, "Maintenance? Hello?" No answer. I walked forward, flashlight shaking slightly. The corridor ended at the boiler room, a heavy metal door that always stayed locked. When I got there, the noise stopped. Everything was silent again. I reached for the doorknob and it was ice cold. I tried the handle. Locked as usual. But that's when I noticed something. A wet streak of water was running from under the door. A long, dark trail stretching back down the hall. I reported it to my supervisor the next morning. He just sighed and said, "Yeah, that happens sometimes. Condensation from the pipes." But I wasn't convinced, because the next night I heard it again. The same wet mopping sound, same time, same place. Only this time when I turned the corner I saw something. There was a faint shape of a man standing at the end of the hall. His back was turned, shoulders slumped, slowly pushing a mop. "Hey," I called. He didn't look up. He just kept moving that mop back and forth. I took a step forward, and the lights above me flickered. For a split second they went out completely. When they came back on, he was gone. No footsteps, no door opening, nothing, just a single wet footprint in the middle of the hallway. I tried to brush it off as exhaustion, but a few nights later something happened that made me realize this was no prank or trick of the light. It was around 3:30 a.m., snowing outside. The hospital was silent. I was sitting in the security office watching the CCTV feed. That's when I noticed something on camera 4, the basement corridor. A figure was walking slowly past the boiler room door. Same slumped shoulders, same uniform, blue overalls just like the old janitor uniforms. But here's what chilled me to the bone. He wasn't casting a shadow, and as he passed under each light, the bulb flickered, then went completely dark. I leaned closer to the monitor, trying to make out his face, but all I could see was this pale, blank shape, like his head was turned slightly toward the camera. Then, he stopped walking. He turned directly toward the camera, and for a moment I swear I saw his lips move. He mouthed something, but there was no audio. I could only make out 2 words, "Still here." Then the feed went static. I ran downstairs. By the time I got to the basement, every single light down that hall was dead. I shined my flashlight ahead, my pulse hammering in my ears. The floor was wet again, that same streak of water leading to the boiler room, but this time, the door wasn't locked, it was slightly open. I pushed it slowly, the hinges squealing. Inside, the air was freezing cold, the kind of cold that feels wrong, like you're standing inside a refrigerator. There was a mop bucket sitting in the corner, an old metal one with a cracked handle. It looked decades old, and next to it, a pair of soaked work boots. I just stood there for a moment, not sure what to do. Then I heard a whisper behind me, right by my ear. A man's voice, and low, tired, almost pleading, "Don't lock me in again." I bolted, ran up the stairs 2 at a time, and didn't stop until I reached the ER. I must have looked pale because the nurse on duty asked if I was okay. All I could say was, "There's someone downstairs." She gave me this strange look, then said softly, "Henry used to say that, before they found him in there." I quit that job a week later. Sometimes I still dream of that hallway, the flickering lights, the sound of a mop dragging across wet tile, and when I wake up I swear I can still hear that whisper in my ear, "Don't lock me in again," and that's when I realized he was still standing there. Story 2. The overnight clerk I used to work at a small 24-hour gas station off a deserted stretch of highway in northern Arizona. It was one of those lonely stops between towns. A single pump, a flickering neon sign, and miles of desert in every direction. Most nights were boring. I'd see a few truckers, maybe a family passing through on a road trip. But after midnight, the world changed. The sound of the wind outside became louder, the shadows longer. You start to feel like the world forgets about you for a few hours and like you're the only person left awake. That's what it felt like. The night he came in, it was a little after 2 a.m. when the bell above the door jingled. I looked up from the counter expecting a driver or maybe a drunk local. But instead, a man walked in wearing a thick brown jacket, zipped all the way to his chin. His face was hidden beneath the hood and he kept his head low. I remember the first thing that struck me was how quiet he was. No footsteps, no sound when he moved, just silence. He went straight to the back of the store near the refrigerator section. I heard the door open and close once, then nothing. A minute passed, then another. "Hey buddy, you need help finding something?" I called. No response. When I looked up, I realized I couldn't see him anymore. The glass door to the fridge was wide open, but no one was there. I stepped out from behind the counter, feeling this weird heaviness in my chest. The air felt colder toward the back of the store. As I turned the corner, I saw the fridge door slowly swing shut. And on the glass, I saw fingertips, smudged, damp, as if someone had pressed their hand against it from the inside. "Sir?" I said again. "We're closing up the cooler soon, you can't..." I stopped, because I finally saw him. He was standing perfectly still in the next aisle, half in shadow, facing away from me. He hadn't picked anything up, hadn't moved an inch. Just standing there, staring at the wall of canned soup. I took a step forward. That's when he slowly turned his head toward me. His hood fell slightly, and I could see part of his face. Pale skin, cracked lips, dark eyes that didn't blink. But what scared me most wasn't his expression, it was that his eyes looked dry, like they hadn't moved or closed in hours. He whispered something, I could barely hear it. I think he said, "Is it still Tuesday?" I just stood there, confused. It's Friday, man." He blinked once, slowly, then turned and walked straight out the door without another word. No car, no sound of footsteps, just gone. When I went outside to check, I looked across the empty lot. Fresh tire marks in the sand led up to the station, but none leaving. I told myself maybe he'd parked behind the building. But when I checked, there was nothing. The security cameras confirmed it. The footage showed me standing at the register, then walking toward the back. But when the door opened, nobody came in. It was like I was talking to myself. A week later, the night manager came in during my shift to change the pump filters. While we were talking, I told him about what I'd seen. His face went pale. He said, "You're not the first to see him." Apparently, years before I started, a drifter froze to death just a few miles down that highway. He'd been trying to walk to town after his truck broke down. The temperature had dropped below freezing that night. They found him the next morning. Brown jacket, hood up, hands frozen stiff in front of him like he'd been knocking on a door. The same kind of jacket I'd seen. After that, I started keeping the lights a little brighter. I'd hum to myself just to break the silence. But no matter what I did, some nights the bell above the door would jingle, even when no one was there. The security footage would always glitch for about 5 seconds when it happened. Once, I swear I heard a voice near the cooler whisper, "It's still Tuesday, I quit 2 months later." That gas station closed down not long after. They said the owner couldn't find anyone willing to take the night shift anymore. Sometimes, when I drive that stretch of highway, I still see that old neon sign flickering in the distance, and every now and then it looks like someone standing at the counter, just a shadow under a hood waiting for something that never comes. And that's when I realized he never left that night. Story 3, The Empty Wing. Used to be a night nurse at a long-term care facility in Ohio. It wasn't a big hospital, just a 2-floor building that mostly cared for elderly patients and people recovering from surgery. I liked the night shifts. They were quiet, predictable, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the rhythmic beeping of heart monitors, the faint smell of sanitizer. It all felt strangely peaceful, until the night the West Wing reopened. That part of the building had been closed for almost a year due to renovations. Old wiring, water damage, things that kept getting delayed. They finally cleared it for reopening, but only a few rooms were ready. The first night I had to do rounds there, my supervisor, Denise, handed me the keys and said, "Don't worry, it's empty. Just check the lights, make sure everything's locked." So around 1 a.m., I made my way down the corridor toward the West Wing. The door creaked open, that kind of hollow metal sound you feel in your chest. The air beyond it was cold, colder than the rest of the building. When I flipped the light switch, only half the bulbs came on. The rest of the hallway stayed in shadow. I remember walking past the first few rooms in an all-empty, bed stripped, medical equipment covered in plastic sheets. The silence was thick. Every step I took echoed off the tile floor. As I reached room 209, I noticed the door was slightly open. That shouldn't have been possible. I'd locked them all earlier that evening during setup. I pushed it open with my shoulder and peeked inside. The room was dark, except for the faint light from the hallway leaking through the blinds. A hospital bed sat in the center. And on the bed, the blanket was pulled up neatly as if someone were lying underneath. I froze. "Hello?" I said softly. No answer. I stepped closer and gently pulled the blanket down. The bed was empty, but the pillow had an impression in it, like someone's head had been resting there just moments ago. A chill ran up my spine. I backed out of the room, heart pounding. The moment I stepped into the hall, the overhead light flickered once, twice, then went completely out. Only the emergency exit light glowed at the far end, bathing everything in red. Then I heard it, a slow, steady tapping sound. It was coming from one of the rooms further down. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like someone lightly drumming their fingers on the wall. I whispered, "Denise, is that you?" Nothing. I forced myself to walk toward the sound. When I reached room 213, the tapping stopped. I stood there, hand on the doorknob, listening. Then from the other side of the door, a faint voice said, "Can you turn the light back on?" I dropped the keys. Every instinct in my body told me to run, but my job, my rational brain, told me to check. I opened the door, just a crack. The light inside flickered once and steadied. And there, sitting on the bed, was an old woman in a hospital gown, her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on the window. "Ma'am," I said quietly, "how did you get in here?" "This wing is closed." She didn't look at me. She just said, "I don't like the dark." I stepped closer, trying to stay calm. "Are you one of the patients from East Hall? Let me help you back." That's when she turned her head toward me. Slow, unnatural. Her eyes looked wrong, cloudy, almost silver, like cataracts. And her mouth moved, but the voice that came out sounded behind me. "It's cold here." I spun around. Nothing. When I turned back to the bed, she was gone. The blanket was perfectly flat, the pillow untouched. I backed out shaking and pulled the door shut. The tapping started again, from inside that room. Faster this time. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the main nurse's station, out of breath, pale as a sheet. Denise looked up, startled. "What happened?" I told her everything. She listened quietly, then said something that made my blood run cold. "We haven't moved any patients into that wing yet." I swore I'd seen someone. I even took her down there to show her. But when we opened the door to room 213, the lights worked perfectly. The bed was stripped bare, and written across the inside of the window in foggy condensation were 4 words. "Don't turn it off." Denise transferred me to the East Wing after that. She never asked about it again, and I never went near that corridor. A few months later, an electrician came to rewire the old West Hall. He said one of the rooms, 213, still had power running through the call light system, even though the whole circuit was supposed to be disconnected. He thought that was odd, so he opened the wall panel to inspect it. Inside, he found an old call button speaker. It was still warm to the touch. The last recorded transmission on the log? A voice repeating over and over, "It's cold here, I don't work night shifts anymore." Every time I walk through a hospital corridor, I make sure the lights stay on, even during the day, because sometimes when it gets too quiet, I swear I can still hear that faint, steady tapping. And that's when I realized the West Wing was never really empty. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true-style horror tales every week. And if you have a story from your own night shift, something you still can't explain, share it in the comments below. You never know. Your story might be the next one featured here. Good night, and stay safe in the dark.